who's a little bit of a spoiled dog. And this is Zev, who is a puppy. And this is their roadmap to success. Zev, can we sit, buddy? I need you in the camera shot. So Zev is on some drugs right now, so I'm not getting a good indicator of his natural personality, but the dogs were together a lot. There was a little bit of a dust up, I mentioned one of the other videos, but it was over a treat. And so I really think that this is a situation of him being a puppy, which he really is, and him being a spoiled dog, because the guardian just, she loves her dogs and meant for the best, but she ended up kind of creating a little bit of petulance over here. So right now she's keeping them separated for the most part because she's worried about them fight happening. And that's a good thing. We want to make sure that our dogs stay safe. But at the same time, when we're trying to rehabilitate dogs and develop new behaviors, we need the dogs. Can you crash for us, buddy? I'll give you a treat if you crash. That might make a good picture. Crash. Crash. It's amazing to me. The guardian hired a trainer who came by for 10 times and didn't teach them basic stuff like sitting and coming down. Now he was also, I believe, sent to a 4-week deal, or when he was 4 months old, and I'm pretty sure that they used a lot of force and corrections, and I'm not a big fan of that because it really affects the dog's spirit. It can help it decrease their self-confidence, makes them really punchy. I mean, if you kind of reach, there are times where I would reach for him, he would just shut her down. And so I like to use only positive reinforcement in dog psychology, and that's what we went over during the session. So we went over a little bit of some basic dog commands. We went over a sit, lay down, which we call crash, sit up, which we call an up command, and then a stand, and now to go to a sit up, we just put a dog in a crash position, and then takes the treat up slowly. Again, always go back to the dog's nose. Stay within an inch or two of the dog's nose when you're trying to lure it. And then as soon as he got up, we popped the treat in his mouth and said the word up, and then we pulled it away from him, and then we got a stand command. Now make sure whenever you're giving a treat, that we're saying the command word after the treat goes in your mouth, and we're just using just the command word, just stand, not good stand, not the dog's name stand, just stand. Let me see. I like the guardian to have them spend some time together, but we can do it at certain times to make it more, put the dogs in a better position to succeed. So specifically, they go to doggy daycare and they hang out together at doggy daycare. There's a lot of other dogs, and there's physical activity and distractions. So after they both have been at doggy daycare, that is a great time to have the dogs hanging out together in the living room, because they're already depleted their energy. We want the dogs to practice being around each other in a good, calm, and balanced state of mind. And that's probably the best opportunity we have for that. Now, something else I'd like the guardian to do is start walking them together twice a day. Doesn't have to be a super long walk. He really needs walks he needs to lose a little bit of weight. But maybe we just walk one revolution. So what I would recommend is walking to the corner, crossing the street, walking down the block, going to the corner. So you're really just on the same block for one revolution, then drop him off at home, then take him out for a longer walk to burn a little bit more extra energy, depending on how much time the guardian has. But like I said in the video above this, dogs get over things by literally moving forward. So the more that we can get them together in a constructive way, the more experience and practice they have in a shared experience, and moving forward is very beneficial. Just make sure that neither dog is moving in front. If the dogs are jerking around, choke up on that leash and keep it short until we get to the point where they're just kind of staying in position on their own. Now, if we do follow-up sessions, we might actually teach the dogs to walk at a heel and other things like that. But right now, the martingale and the special twist of the leash will give the guardian the control that we want. So right there, so we see we have good interactions. He was completely relaxed. He didn't even raise his head. If he raised his head, that would give me an indication that he had a pause or a concern. So you can use his behavior to judge Zev's behavior. We have a video above the warning signs to look for. So when they're interacting, those are the signs you look for. But again, just because you see the hackles go up, or the tail, or the ears, one of them by itself does not necessarily mean it. Now, start a journal like I talked about before. Every time there is a dust up, hopefully there aren't any more, but if there are any, separate the dogs, sit down, write down what happened, and then immediately put them on martingales and take them for a walk, as long as they're not still targeting each other. You want to make sure the last thing they remember of each other is a positive experience. So even if it's late at night and you just walk to the end of the block and back in just a 3-minute walk, we want to have a positive experience and then separate them at that point, and then the guardian can feel a little bit more relaxed. Now, Zev was a little bit protective of his dog bed when his sister, out of the same litter, came by. And so if that's the case, because his sister's going to come by very frequently, and his sister's well-trained and well-behaved, he's not, and if it makes the guardian a little bit anxious, then that can create a response. And so just while we're doing this, we want to take anything out of the way that could potentially cause a problem so we can start shaping the behaviors that we want. And once we've established that and we feel comfortable and we're confident in that, that's when we want to start getting into pushing the boundaries with other things. I think he sees a bug or something. He's going by the pool. Okay, so some of the other things we went over is ways to use positive reinforcement to provide some structure. So we went over what I call petting with a purpose. Do you need to get that, or can we still go?
No, we could still go.
Okay. So that was great. Both dogs ran to the door. This is your friend at the door? Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, I'll tell you what. Then let's do this.
You want me to stop it?
No, don't stop it. I'm going to just do this. And hopefully this is still viewing me, and I'm going to continue, and you can go answer your door because we don't want to have the dogs unsupervised by themselves. Okay. All right, now I'm going to try to finish this roadmap to success. So we went over positive reinforcement, and the ways that I like to do that, first one I like to use is what I call petting with a purpose. Right now the guardian was petting one of the dogs, a Bentley, every time he did anything wrong. He is a demand barker. And so every time he demand barked, she would pick him up or she would pet him, and that's rewarding that. Remember, anything your dog is doing when you pet it is what you're reinforcing. And this can also include unbalanced states of mind, like anxiety, stress, anger, frustration. A lot of people see a dog that's scared and they pick it up and they try to calm and soothe it, but you're actually amplifying that behavior. If your dog is nervous, you can touch and hold your hand there and let them know I'm here with you. They associate touch with love, but you're not amplifying it and reinforcing that. For petting with a purpose, what I want the guardian to do is start, the dog nudges or scratches or jumps up on, she tells the dog a counter order, tells it to sit. When it sits, I want her to pet the dog under his chin and say just the command word, just sit. And not sit, sit. And then, let's say the guardian just wants to pet the dog on her own, and the dog isn't demanding attention. She should still ask the dog to sit. This way the dog understands the only way that I'm going to get attention from a human is by sitting in front of them. We call this manding or learning to mand. Now, if the guardian's boyfriend or a friend is over and they recognize that she's petting the dogs without a purpose, or they suspect she is because the dog is standing while she's petting him, they might say paycheck to her. Paycheck just means I suspect you may have forgotten to pet with a purpose. The person should immediately stop. Don't argue about it. Give them a benefit of the doubt, even if you're right. Stop. Tell the dog to sit, pet on the chin, say sit, and so you can say, actually I asked the dog to sit before he came in, and when he heard you coming, he stood up and I continued petting, and David said that's okay, which it is. But the more that we get the dogs to have to earn attention or earn affection, the more rewarding and more beneficial it will be. Now that's passive training. Petting with purpose, I should say. Passive training is what I want to talk about next, which is simply rewarding the dog for desired actions and behaviors. So every time the dog comes to you, pet it and say come. Every time it sits, pet it and say sit. Every time it lays down, pet it and say crash. If a dog brings you a specific toy, you can pet it and say apple or cherry or banana or whatever, I'm saying fruits, but I'm hungry. But whatever the dog happens to be bringing you at the time, if it always brings you the ball, and you say, nub ball for this one, after a while, you say nub ball, and the dog goes and gets it. I wouldn't say nub ball, I like one-word commands. Also, when you're giving new command words, come up with fun command words. You could say bed for the dog bed, but I prefer beach or Jamaica or mountain or something that's unique, that's maybe an inside joke if you have a favorite restaurant. And the way that I do that is I toss a treat on the bed and let the dog see me do it. When it goes over, when it licks up the treat in its mouth, that's when I say the command word, always after the treat goes in the mouth. And then I let the dog walk away, throw another treat on there. Repeat that about 5 or 10 times. And then next time the dog moves away, if the dog's looking in this direction, the bed's over here, I might hold the treat over here and get the dog distracted, and then drop a treat on, or wait for the dog to leave the room and leave a treat on the bed. Then just observe. Don't point out where it is. Wait for the dog to find it on their own. When they do, say the word beach or Jamaica or whatever your word is. Speaking of fun names, I would like you to come up with a naughty dog name for each dog. A lot of us use our dog's name as a way of correcting them, and that will decrease their likelihood of coming when you recall them. So instead of saying whatever the dog's name is, find out something that you don't like, and then start saying that name when the dog does something wrong. After a while, each dog has a unique bad dog name that you can use when they're being obstinate or not paying attention, and if you use that name, they know they're about to get into trouble. And that way, when you call their name, it's nothing but peaches and cream. Remember, for passive training, every time the dog comes to you, make sure you pet it and say the word come. Preferably under the chin. Now, we can pet anywhere we want, we just don't want to pat on top of the head. That creates a down nose orientation. That's an insecure body mechanic for dogs. Let me see. So that's petting with a purpose and passive training. Rules and enforcing rules are going to be important, especially consistently. Remember, you have a window of 3 seconds to correct or reward your dog for them to make the connection. But because dogs go through consistency, repetition, and good timing, you need to repeat it a lot. So when you're enforcing these rules, you want to enforce them consistently and right away. Now, Bentley loves to be on the furniture, and Zev would also like to be on the furniture, but he's a bigger dog. One of the rules I suggest is no furniture for at least a month, or as long as these problems are still going on. At the end of that period of time, furniture, but only for good behavior. So if we invite Bentley up and he starts barking, he has to get down off the couch. At that point, then it's furniture only with invitation, and like I said, for good behavior. Now, let me see, other rules. When the human is eating, the dog should not be within 7 feet of the human, even if they're not actively begging for the food. That's inappropriate in the dog world. I would also like the guardian to make the dog sit before we let him out. Now, we have a beautiful place where here in Los Angeles, it's a beautiful day. We have an outdoor pool with some nice AstroTurf. There's doors that the guardian's going to let the dog in and out, but we can also keep the area open. If it's open, it's fine. But if the door is closed, go to the door, tell the dog to sit one time. If it doesn't sit, turn and walk away, wait 1 minute, come back and tell it to sit again. If it doesn't sit that time, walk away 2 minutes, next time 4 minutes, next time 8 minutes. So after a while, the dog learns the only way I'm going to sit, I can go outside is sitting. Because as soon as I sit, she comes and opens the door. So I spend a lot of time teaching dogs to sit because it's a less authoritative position. There's more, it's almost a respectful position. It's also a way of challenging less. And so the more you ask your dog to sit, the easier it is for them to sit in different situations. Now, we went out on a walk, and I gave the guardian, there's a video about this, long video, where we talked about the structured walk and the rules for that. I'd like the guardian to be walking the dogs, like I said, twice a day together. And so do it in the morning, and then do it in the evening or the afternoon or whatever it is. But the more time, and at first we want to just go around the block for Bentley, but we'd like to walk longer and longer for Bentley because he needs to lose a little bit of weight, and exercise is a good way to stimulate him mentally as well as physically. Let me see, what else do we want to go over? Feeding them, she feeds them separately, which is fine. However, dogs eat in the order of their rank. So if I'm feeding a dog, I'm going to put food in the bowl. I'm going to use the escalating consequences I went over to disagree with the dog. So it can't come within 3 feet of the food. And then once the dog is respecting that, then I'm going to step off to the side and I'm going to grab a snack or something that a human could eat something first. It doesn't have to be a real meal, it just has to be 5 real actual bites. So you can get one little Nabisco cracker and eat it in 5 tiny bites, then give your dog permission to eat. Now I give each dog a command word to eat. So the way I do that is through passive training. So let's say we're going to use the word feast. As soon as I give the dog permission to eat, I wait, and as soon as it takes its first bite of food, I say the word feast. It hears feast while food's in its mouth. Eventually, when the dogs can be trusted and be together again, we can actually have a structured feeding where both dogs are sitting and waiting. The human puts food in both bowls. The human eats something first, then we say feast, and that means something to Bentley, but it doesn't mean anything to Zev. And then maybe when Bentley gets done eating, we make Bentley leave the area and then bring Zev up. And when Zev eats, maybe we say the first word is grub. So after a while, when Zeb hears grub, because for 2 months, every time he takes that first bite, he hears the word grub from his guardian. After about 2 months, you say grub, and that means go eat my food. So make sure the guardian is eating something first. Let me see. And, Bentley only eats in the evening, and he's very picky about it. He's picky about a lot of things because I think he's so spoiled, and he's been taking advantage of his guardian. So what I would do is feed in the morning, put the food in. If he doesn't, as soon as he sniffs the bowl and walks away, pick up the food, dump it. If it's refrigerator or you can keep it, dump it in a Ziploc bag, put it back in the fridge, and put the empty bowl back down. It's important to put the empty bowl back down. He'll go and lick the empty bowl. And what's up? Well, when you leave, then food goes away. And right now he's only getting fed once a day. I would like him feeding at least twice a day. It will help with his metabolism, and it also gives the opportunity of the guardian the opportunity to add structure to feeding them. So what I would do is next time, if I feed him and he turns his nose up and walks away, I pick up the bowl, dump it, put the empty bowl back down, and then I would feed Zeb. And then Bentley does not eat again until the next breakfast. Now, if Bentley eats breakfast, then I would give him dinner. But if I give him dinner and then the next meal at breakfast, he turns his nose up at it again, well, then you don't get dinner again. The only way you get dinner is if you eat breakfast. And after a while, you'll get Bentley eating both meals. And that's also helpful because the human is saying, hey, it's time to eat. If Bentley later on is on a pain med or antibiotic or something he needs to eat with food, we need him to be able to eat on command. It's very unusual for dogs to present food and have them turn their nose up. I have some of the most delicious treats of all time, and he ate them at first, but after a while I started turning his nose up at those as well. I think he has just got his guardian so wrapped around his finger that he just thinks the world is his oyster. So he's going to be really important. Both dogs, it's important to pet with a purpose, but for different reasons. So make sure that you are not petting your dog for no reason. You just make it sit or prepay for attention, and then you can pet it for hours after that. But the more you make it earn it, the better it's going to feel about itself. It's better self-esteem it's going to have, and better self-control because I can't tell the human what to do, and more healthy respect for the human as an authority figure. I'm probably leaving some stuff out of this. Oh, we went over a focus exercise. I will try to remember to put a focus exercise link in the above video. If I didn't, please email me or call me, and I can add one in there. I've done it with a lot of clients. I didn't go through all the details of it here, so make sure that you remind me to do that if I didn't, because there's a lot of little things. We want to eventually get to the point where we're doing the focus exercise where we raise it and then take 20 seconds for that second movement before we deliver the treat, and the dog sits there waiting patiently. That is crucial because that way when we're out on a walk or doing something, if the dog is starting to look at the other dog, I can say focus, I can redirect its attention away from the fight. If there are any fights, do not say anything. Separate them without any verbalization. It's natural for us to expound on it, but sometimes that can add fuel to the fire. If you have to, I usually try to pick a dog up by its rear paws, but I really think the guardian's going to keep them apart. We want to try to push the boundaries by getting them together. Now, one last little thing that we can do is, especially for Bentley, is putting him on a tether. A couple things for Bentley. Bentley likes to demand bark. If he demand barks, I would get up and leave the house. Grab the leash, take Zev with you, and walk and go for a walk. Because Bentley will bark in here and demand attention the whole time. Well, this is called a negative punishment. So as soon as you bark, I leave the room. And do it right away. Don't let him bark, 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 and then leave the room. And after, because when he's barking for attention. And if you give him attention, even if you're just chewing him out, that's what he wants. So if you leave, that's not what he wants. He wants your attention. So if barking at you causes you to leave, well, then I don't want to do that anymore. Now, a lot of times I'll teach a dog to speak so I can teach it to have quiet command. And I think that we're going to do some repeat sessions here. So that if the guardian wants to do that, remind me next time we have a session booked, and we'll go over teaching the dog how to do that. But the focus exercise is something that would be very powerful to do with both dogs. Now, if Bentley's tuning his nose up on it, I think it's a hierarchy thing. So the more the guardian makes Bentley come to her rather than going to him, the more that she pets with a purpose and rewards desired actions and behaviors through passive training, the more he's going to want her attention, because right now he gets it so often, he doesn't have to ask for it. That's going to change. All right, let me see what else. The tether. So for Bentley, take a leash, run it around like the leg of a heavy table or something he can't pull, run it through the handle, and then attach it to his collar. That way we can make sure that he can't get to Zev. Now, one of the fights happened when Zev was laying at the guardian's feet. Bentley was away from her, and they were both tranquil, and Bentley came in to jump on the couch, and Zev went after him. So that could be a blocking position, could have been caught off guard. So if you see that scenario is recreated, we can recreate that later on and add some structure to it, but I'd want to do that with supervision. In the short term, I would not let Zev, if Zev is going to be on your feet, make him sit on one side of your feet specifically, or when Bentley's coming over, ask Bentley to come around the table this way or that way. We want to try to avoid them coming in contact with each other, and if that is a contact point where there are multiple fights as a result of that, we can use some counter conditioning to stop that and help the dog understand that when a dog comes and I'm near my human, there's no reason to protect. I think what's going on right now is it's a jealousy, and I'm in possession of the human right now, and you're trying to come over, and you have both dogs doing the same thing. That's why the importance of rules and structure and rewarding desired behaviors are going to be so beneficial for these dogs in terms of flipping what I call the leader-follower dynamic. I'm out here by myself because the dogs went in to yell at somebody at the front door, and the guardian's helping somebody, so we're going to sign off here without a dog. Remember, everything you do trains your dog, only sometimes you mean it.